Grade 12 Economics. Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Mhlawan, back here with you today to continue our lessons on the business cycle. Remember, the main topic here is macroeconomics, and the topic is the business cycle that we're covering today. Remember, last week we covered a part of the business cycle, but today we continue to conclude the business cycle. So the focus is on the new economic paradigm, as well as features underpinning forecasting. Please join me. Let's see what I have for you in the book. The following are the lesson objectives that will be achieved during the course of this lesson. So after this lesson, we have understood the following aspects of the business cycle. The use of demand-side policies at peak and trough when smoothing the business cycle. The relationship between inflation and unemployment through Phillips curve. The use of supply-side policies to stimulate aggregate supply. And then a graphical explanation of economic paradigm. Features underpinning forecasting. As for our previous lesson, you already know the following: the composition of the business cycle and features of the business cycle. Business cycle explanations, types of the business cycle, reasons for the business cycle, the government policy. The following are the concepts that will assist you to understand this lesson. First, we have economic paradigm, which is known as economic perspective, focus on how fiscal and monetary policies are used to influence the economy. Inflation, which is known as a significant increase in general price level. Unemployment, which occurs when some economically active people who have been actively looking for a job cannot find it. Infrastructural cost of basic facilities necessary to support economic activities. Capital consumption, the appreciation or depreciation of an asset during the production process. We continue with the terminology. Human resource development, the act of making skills and training as well as healthcare as a priority on the labor force. Incentives, benefits given by the government to industries directly or indirectly to support the production process. Corporate tax, tax paid by businesses on their revenues. Personal income tax, tax paid by employees on their wages and salaries. Inputs, resources necessary to generate productivity in any producing corporation. So this is our lesson body. It appears like this. So it looks short, but it will be long. We have the new economic paradigm, which is very long. And then we have features underpinning forecasting, which is one of the long topic again. So both of these are the essays. Economic paradigm is an essay on demand side policies and also on supply side policies. Also, features underpinning forecasting is also a part of an essay. You check your examination guideline, you will see. So this explains economic paradigm. So if we talk about the economic paradigm or the new economic paradigm, we refer to the new economic perspective, which is the mixture of economic policies used to influence both aggregate demand and aggregate supply. It is very important for you to know that the paradigm or economic paradigm mix both aggregate demand and aggregate supply, or demand side policies and supply side policies. It's an economic perspective that aims at eliminating uncertainties on the use of economic policies such as fiscal policy, the monetary policy, as well as the supply side policies. The new economic paradigm refers to the government policies designed to ensure a high rate of economic growth without having supply constraints and price inflation. So it focuses on ensuring that as we have economic growth, that does not result to supply challenges or supply constraints. There should not be more money chasing few goods in the economy. As we have economic growth, there's also high level of supply. At the same time, we don't have an inflation effect. it is more attached or embedded on both the demand side policies and supply side policies. If we talk about the demand side policies, we talk about some measures undertaken by the government to influence the aggregate supply, aggregate demand in the economy, while the supply side policies refers to measures undertaken by the government to influence aggregate supply in the economy. So the main idea here is it is very much important for the government, if it intervenes in the economy, to ensure that if it influences the aggregate demand, also the aggregate supply is influenced. Because if it happens that the government implement expansionary fiscal or monetary policy, there will be more demand for goods and services, while businesses or firms are faced by supply constraints or supply challenges. So it is important for the state to intervene to move both policies simultaneously. Influence aggregate demand using demand side policies, also influence aggregate supply using supply side policies, so that there will be no effect of an inflation. If ever the demand side policies have been influenced expansionary, and then the supply side policies have been influenced expansionary, that will lead to the demand increase and the supply will be responding positive to the change in demand or to the increase in demand. That will be curbing the effect of an inflation, but resulting to the demand keeping on being equal to the supply, or the supply reacting to the change in demand within the economy. That's why we have the economic paradigm that is embedded on both demand side policies and supply side policies. If one policy can be influenced, especially let's say the demand side policies have been influenced expansionary without influencing the supply side policies, that means in the economy there will be more money available to chase few goods, because businesses will be facing supply constraint. There will be less supply of goods and services, while consumers are demanding more goods and services. That will lead to the effect of an inflation in the economy. And then demand side policies explained. So demand side policies are policies used to influence changes in aggregate demand in the economy. They can be applied expansionary if the economy is facing contraction period or at economic slump, or contractionary if the economy is facing expansion period or at economic boom, which can be peak or prosperity. So whenever the economy is facing contraction period, which can be recession, depression, or trough, the government can intervene by implementing expansionary policies. So it can be expansionary fiscal policy or expansionary monetary policy, or then reducing unemployment and decrease inflation. So those are part of the demand side. And then if the economy is facing maybe prosperity or peak, the government can intervene by implementing contractionary policies, ensuring that economy downturns from peak. Because if the economy is at peak, remember I mentioned last week that it is overheating, meaning there's more money chasing few goods. Also, there's more effect of inflation and imports in there. So the government and central bank can intervene by implementing contractionary policies, so that the economy can start to slightly decline in order to reduce the effect of high inflation, because there will be more money chasing few goods, and also to reduce the effect of imports, because if there's more income available in the country, consumers will always demand goods and services, so they will be having more import tendency because of high level of income. Changes in one of demand side policies always result in change in aggregate demand in the economy. So if ever the government intervened by maybe influencing expansionary fiscal policy, that will lead to the change in aggregate demand, because as maybe the government reduces tax, there will be more money in the pocket of the consumers, which will lead to them having more disposable income. And remember that consumers are always tempted to spend if there is more income, so there will be an increase in aggregate demand. Or maybe the government intervened by increasing government spending if we are facing contraction period. That will be leading to more money available in the economy, more disposable income. Remember, the state can intervene by increasing its spending on the following. It can be the improvement of projects of the infrastructure, or also the government can increase its spending on increasing wages and salaries for public servants. It can also increase social transfers, etc. So that can lead to more money available in the economy, more disposable income, because remember, if it's about infrastructural project, there will be more job creation. Remember, job creation is a source of income, so more income will be available. Then people will demand more goods and services, which will be increasing the aggregate demand. The demand side policies include inflation, unemployment, monetary policy, and the fiscal policy. These are the part of the demand side policies. Then we continue. These are the components, like I've mentioned. We have inflation, unemployment, fiscal policy, and the monetary policy. Remember, these two can be implemented either expansionary or contractionary. If ever the economy is at peak, there must be contractionary fiscal policy. If it's at trough or facing contraction period, there must be expansionary fiscal policy. If ever the economy is at peak, there must be contractionary monetary policy. If ever economy is at trough, there must be expansionary monetary policy. So with this inflation and unemployment, the main focus is on this. Remember, if ever there's a high level of economic growth, there will be more disposable income available in the economy, which will lead to people demanding more goods and services. And if there is more money chasing few goods, or if ever the aggregate demand increase faster than the aggregate supply, or if the demand increase more and supply does not respond, that can lead to increase in prices. If ever the increase in prices is significant in the economy, that is regarded as inflation. Remember what happens with the inflation. If ever, let's say, there is high level of employment, unemployment decreases, and then inflation increases. Then we talk about unemployment. We know that if ever there's a high level of economic growth in the economy, there is always high demand for labor. Then with more demand for labor, that simply indicates that, or that simply means that the level of unemployment decreases while the level of employment increases. That will always lead to more income and more demand for goods and services. And if ever the demand increases more than the supply, that can lead to the significant increase in price level because of the decrease in what we call decrease in the unemployment. So this simply creates a relationship that is illustrated by the Phillips curve. So expansionary fiscal policy, remember, the government can intervene by implementing expansionary fiscal policy if ever the economy is facing contraction period, that downswing that can be characterized by recession, depression, or trough. So the state can intervene by implementing expansionary fiscal policy, which occurs when the government increase government spending and decrease taxes. Expansionary fiscal policy is implemented when the economy is on the contraction period. So like I've mentioned, it can be recession, depression, or trough. Those are the part of the contraction period of the business cycle. The simultaneous use of taxation and the government spending accelerates or increases the aggregate demand reaction faster than when one of the two instrument is used. So if ever the state decides to implement both the taxation as well as government spending, there will be a quick reaction in the economy. The demand will be changing faster because remember, if ever the state intervenes by decreasing taxes or taxation in the economy, that will lead to people having more money available in their pockets, which will be increasing the demand or aggregate demand on goods and services. While if the state also intervenes by increasing government spending, that will lead to job opportunities if ever there have been improvement in the infrastructure. That will also lead to more disposable income. So for that effect, there will be more money available to spend on goods and services. So there will be a sound and quick effect if the state intervenes by simultaneously using both a decrease in taxation and increase in the government spending. Increased government spending, increased cash injections, and trigger more employment opportunities as well as disposable income. Like I mentioned, if ever there's more government spending, that will lead to more cash injections in the economy, and it will always lead to more job creation in the economy, and then that will lead to more disposable income. It is very important for you to be specific on this one. If ever the state increases spending, be specific on what, because not all of them can lead to job creation. If the state intervenes by maybe increasing wages and salaries for its employees, that will be leading to more income in the economy and more demand for goods and services. However, if the state intervenes by maybe improving infrastructure, injecting more money for the infrastructure, there will be job creation first, which is a source of income. So that income then can lead to greater demand for goods and services in the economy. Aggregate demand increases if disposable income increases. So we know that people are always tempted to spend if ever the level of income increases. So that leads to the increase in the aggregate demand if ever there is high level of income available in the economy. We continue with the expansionary fiscal policy. The decrease in taxation puts more income on the consumer's pocket. So if ever the tax has been reduced, in this case, we talk about either the direct tax or indirect tax. For instance, if the government intervened by lowering or decreasing the personal income tax, employees or households that are employed will be having more disposable income, which can lead to greater demand for goods and services, which we regard as aggregate demand. And then if the state intervened by decreasing corporate tax or company taxes, that will lead to businesses having more revenues remaining with them, and then they can use that money to reinvest in the economy, which will further increase the economy of the country, and that will lead to greater demand for goods and services. If the state intervened by lowering or decreasing the indirect taxes, it can be value-added tax. Remember, if the value-added tax decreases, that will always lead to the selling price for goods and services also being lowered. That will be encouraging consumers to demand more goods and services because they will be having even more real income. Remember what is meant by the real income? Real income refers to the quantity of goods affordable with the given or available income. So if ever value-added tax has been lowered or decreased by the government, that will lead to more demand for goods and services. The decrease in taxation, direct and indirect tax, positively affect disposable and real income. Remember, what affects disposable income is the decrease of direct taxes, and then real income is the decrease of indirect taxes, such as value-added tax. Indirect tax has a tendency of increasing the real income and aggregate demand, like I've mentioned. Direct tax has a tendency of increasing the disposable income, which tempts economic participants to demand more. Like I've mentioned before, that people are always tempted to spend whenever the level of income increases. And then on the constructionary fiscal policy, remember in this case, the economy is at peak or is on the expansion period. Can be peak or prosperity or economic boom, and then it is moving upward. So to avoid that upward movement, remember it is very important to ensure that the state intervenes as much as endogenous explanations explained. So you ask yourself, why should the government intervene to slow down the economy if it's facing that peak or boom? Remember, too much of something is always a problem. If ever the economy is at peak, there is more income. That income might be more, and it can lead to the aggregate demand increasing faster than aggregate supply, because that income might be chasing few goods. Because remember, suppliers might be facing an issue of supply constraints or supply challenges, finding that consumers are demanding more goods and services, but producers are unable to supply what is demanded by consumers, and that creates an inflation effect that is known to be a demand pull inflation. Another point that is very important for you to note is that if ever the economy is at peak or prosperity, then there is more income available, like I mentioned before. And what happens there? Consumers are demanding more goods and services. As they demand more goods and services, they are not only demanding locally produced goods and services, but they are also demanding the foreign produced goods and services, which are known to be imports. So if ever consumers are demanding more at peak there, then demanding even more imports, that can lead to the trade deficit, because imports might end up exceeding exports of the country. Then that will lead to the balance of payment being affected negatively on our current account. It will cause the trade deficit because imports will be more than exports. That's why the state must intervene by smoothing the business cycle if ever the economy is facing the peak of prosperity, ensuring that the level of demand is slightly decreasing in the economy, and other economic activities can slow down to cool down the overheated or overheating economy. Expansionary fiscal policy. So this one is contractionary. It's a contractionary fiscal policy, like mentioned here. It occurs when the government increases taxation and decrease government spending. Remember, if tax has been increased, that always lead to less income available in the pocket of the consumer and less demand for goods and services. If the government spending decrease, it can be when the state maybe decide to cut off some expenditure on the infrastructural projects, or deciding not to increase wages and salaries for its employees. That will be leading to less income available in the economy. Remember, if we don't have enough money, we spend less in the economy. So it is implemented when the economy is overheating at peak of prosperity. Remember, whenever the economy is at peak of prosperity, we say the economy is overheating. So the state must intervene by cooling down that economy. This is done to cool down a high level of inflation and reduce the level of imports in the economy. Like I've mentioned, There is high level of inflation at peak and prosperity, and then also there's a high level of imports in there because there's more money available in the economy. People are attempted to spend even goods that are produced abroad. Decreased government spending lowers cash injections and lowers employment opportunities as well as disposable income. If ever the government spending has been lowered, that will lead to less cash injection in the economy and less demand for goods and services. Aggregate demand decreases as a result of lower disposable income. Then when people are having less income, obviously they will demand less goods and services, which will be resulting to the economy turning down slightly, because if consumers demand less, producers are discouraged to produce more. For that sake, economy will start to turn down and some people will be losing their jobs. And then we continue the increase in taxation. Remember, if tax is being increased, consumers will be remaining with less income or money available in their pocket, which will be leading to them demanding less goods and services. If the government intervenes by increasing, let's say, indirect taxes, the selling price for goods and services will be increasing, resulting to people affording or consumers affording less goods and services, which is known to be a decrease in the real income. Indirect tax has a tendency of decreasing the real income and aggregate demand in the economy. The direct tax has a tendency of decreasing disposable income, in which lowers aggregate demand. If the state intervene, maybe by increasing company tax or business tax or corporate tax, that will be leading to business having less revenues. So if they have less revenues, they cannot inject much money into the economy, meaning the spending will be declining because businesses are facing the issue of high taxation to be paid. Increased taxation decrease money from consumers' pockets and result to decrease in the aggregate demand. Then we move to the monetary policy. Remember, if we talk of the monetary policy, we talk about the policy by the central bank or reserve bank. In South Africa, we call that one South African Reserve Bank, which aims at stabilizing money supply and also ensure price stability in the economy. So, the expansionary monetary policy. So, if we want to expand, remember the economy is facing downswing. It's either it's on recession, depression, or trough. So we have to expand in there to avoid further sharp contraction period. So the state can, the Reserve Bank can intervene to ensure that there is more aggregate demand. That can be done by ensuring that there is more money supply available in the economy. So the Reserve Bank can use the monetary policy. Expansion monetary policy occurs when the central bank decreases repurchase rate or repo rate, decrease cash reserve. Remember, if ever repurchase rate decrease, that will lead to more money supply because there will be more lending tendency in the economy. And then decrease cash reserves. If ever cash reserve has been lowered, that will be decreasing the vault money. And then the Reserve Bank can also intervene by buying bonds from the open market, meaning from commercial banks. And also the Reserve Bank can instruct commercial banks to relax or to be very lenient on credit creation, which is known as relaxing moral persuasion or moral pressure or moral suasion. It is implemented when the economy is on the contraction period, which can be recession, depression, or trough. This increases money supply in the economy and stimulates aggregate demand. We know that if one of these has been implemented above, there will be more money supply in the economy. So keep it in your mind. Expansionary monetary policy aims at increasing the money supply in the economy. Remember, if there's more money supply, there will be less money demand. For that sake, there will be a greater aggregate demand for goods and services. Keep in your mind, we are dealing with the demand side policies. Everything we do must influence the demand for goods and services. Then we continue. Lower repurchase rate or repo rate increase the credit availability since borrowings become affordable. So if ever repo rate has been decreased, remember that repo rate is the interest rate charged by the central bank to commercial bank on their borrowing. We also call this one a lending rate or repo rate. If ever it's been reduced, other interest rate will also be affected. They will be reduced, such as the money in the banking sector and are committed to keep or hold on their reserves. If ever the cash reserve has been lowered, that will mean there will be less vault money. Remember, the vault money is money that is available for the bank but cannot be spent, cannot be used. It's not available for usage. It is kept on reserve of the bank. So we call that a vault money. So if ever the cash reserve has been reduced, that means the vault money will be decreasing while money supply increases, because money supply will always increase if ever the cash reserve has been reduced. If they reduce cash reserve, they allow money supply to increase faster, which will lead to more money flow in the economy, commercial banks will be giving out more loans, and then there will be greater demand for goods and services. The purchase of shares or bonds by the Reserve Bank from open market is known as quantitative easing. Whenever the central bank is buying shares from the open market from commercial banks, that is known to be quantitative easing, because it relaxes the pressure and allows commercial banks to hold on more money, which can be given to the circulation, and it will lead to greater demand for goods and services. Relaxing moral suasion or moral persuasion or moral pressure or credit control, by the way, in the banking sector increases the level of credit and encourage high spending, and which increase the economy. Remember, the central bank is the one that is responsible to give more instructions to commercial banks. So, depending on economic conditions, if the economy is facing trough or contraction period, the central bank can instruct commercial banks to be very lenient when giving out credit, meaning there must be more credit creation in the economy. If there is such, remember, people are always tempted to spend whenever there is more credit. They spend the money they don't even have, which will lead to the greater or increase in the aggregate demand in the economy. And that is good for the economy, because if the demand is increasing, that encourages producers to produce even more and lead to the economic recovery from trough, and the economy can go up to the recovery. And then contractionary monetary policy. Remember, if ever a Reserve Bank intervene by implementing contractionary monetary policy, that means the central bank is trying to reduce or decrease money supply in the circulation. That means the economy is doing well. The economy can be at peak or prosperity or on the expansion period. Then the state believes that that economy is doing too good, then it must start to contract, because it will be causing more inflation. Central bank can intervene by implementing contractionary monetary policy by increasing repurchase rate or repo rate or lending rate, also increasing cash reserves, also selling bonds to commercial banks in the open market, and also tightening moral persuasion. If they tighten moral persuasion, they make it difficult for commercial banks to create credit, so that people cannot demand more goods and services. To dampen an overheating economy, the central bank uses contractionary monetary policy. Contractionary monetary policy occurs when the central bank increases repo rate or repurchase rate or lending rate, increase cash reserves, which will lead to the increase in vault money, sell bonds into the open market, which is known to be open market transaction, and then also tighten moral persuasion or be more strict on the credit creation. It is implemented when the economy is overheating at peak or prosperity to reduce effect of high inflation and high import tendency, like I've mentioned before. This lowers money supply in the economy and reduces the aggregate demand. Whenever a contractionary monetary policy has been implemented, there will be less money supply and there will be less demand for goods and services. Then the economy can downturn from peak and slow down. Then the economy won't be overheating anymore. High repurchase rate decreases credit availability since borrowings become expensive. Like I mentioned, if ever there's a high repo rate, that means other interest rates will be affected also. They will also be increasing by commercial banks, which will lead to clients of commercial banks not borrowing more money because loans will be expensive. That will be reducing money supply from the circulation and lead to less aggregate demand. We continue the contractionary. High cash reserves increases vault money. If ever the Reserve Bank intervene by increasing cash reserves, that will be resulting to more money on the reserves or vault money, and then there will be less money supply in the circulation, resulting to less demand for goods and services. The sale of shares or bonds by the Reserve Bank to the open market decreases money supply, meaning on the open market transaction, if the central bank intervened by selling some bonds, remember we call them government bonds, we call them financial securities, we call them paper assets, we also call them shares, it's one thing. So if the state can intervene by selling those to the open market or to commercial banks, that will lead to commercial banks remaining with less money. As they remain with less money, they will be having less to give out as loans to their clients, which will be lowering the money supply in the circulation. So the central bank is very much strategic. If it wants to decrease money supply, it can not only focus on repo rate, it can also sell bonds or shares or government bonds into the open market, for which the transaction in this case takes place between commercial banks as well as the central bank. If commercial banks are buying those bonds, the commercial banks then remain with less money available in their position to give out for credit. That will lead to less money supply and less aggregate demand. Remember, if the demand is decreasing, business that is carried to produce more, for that sake, the economy will start to downturn and some economic variables will be affected negatively. They will be decreasing, then the economy will slow down. Tightening moral persuasion or moral suasion or the credit control or moral pressure in the banking sector decreases the level of credit and discourages spending, which slows down the economy. If ever the central bank instruct commercial bank to be very strict when giving out credit, there will be less credit creation in the economy. So if there's a less credit creation, then there will be less demand for goods and services within the economy. And then this graph indicates the short run AD and AS, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Remember, we've simply affected changes in the aggregate demand, not changes in aggregate supply. So in this case, the state and the central bank have intervened by increasing what we call the aggregate demand. So this graph will be indicating to us the increase in the aggregate demand from 80 to 81 without the response of the aggregate supply. Remember, I told you that if ever there's more money chasing few goods, that will be causing inflation effect in the economy. So this is illustrated by this graph. Let's see. The aggregate demand is increasing, shifting to the right from 80 to 81. Then does the aggregate supply respond? No, it doesn't respond. Aggregate supply does not respond. So if the demand increases further than the supply in the economy, that put pressure, prices, and result to the inflation. That's why you see that connection in there. It is indicating to us the price is increasing from P to P1, and then also this is our P1, and then the quantity increase from Q to Q1. And then what happens? We have the upward shift, and then we have the shift of the quantity demanded, and then also we have E1, which is our new equilibrium. Why does this happen? The supply does not respond to the increase in demand. So the demand has increased faster than aggregate supply. Then that has caused inflation effect. So we want. For now, we have only implemented the demand side policies without implementing the supply side policies. That's why we see the demand increasing or responding, but the supply does not respond because supply side policy has not yet been effected. But once we effect them both simultaneously, you will see there will be a difference. So keep this graph and see what happens on another graph after we have implemented both the demand side policies as well as the supply side policies. So this explains the short run aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Aggregate demand AD and aggregate supply are in equilibrium at point E. Here we go, where we have AS and AD. And then if aggregate demand is stimulated so that it moves to 81, aggregate supply remains unchanged at AS, less real output becomes available, which increases the price. We see the price increasing caused by the fact that aggregate supply remains constant at AS. It does not respond to the change in aggregate demand. Quantity demanded increased to Q1 while the quantity supplied remained at Q. Check. Suppliers are saying we can only supply at Q. Then consumers are saying we demand at Q1. For that sake, the demand is more than what is being supplied. That's why there's an inflation effect in this graph. Then we continue with the explanation. Supply is often sticky and fixed in the short term as it remains unchanged. We know that the supply remains fixed in the short term because factors of production remain fixed in there, or inputs remain fixed or unchanged. Therefore, if aggregate demand increases to 81, we see it increase to 81, and aggregate supply does not respond. Intersection is at E1. We see at E1 there is intersection. The solution is to create conditions that ensure that supply is more flexible to prevent any inflation effect. So for now, supply is not flexible. So we'll see when we make the supply flexible what is going to happen. Then we talk of the inflation now. So economic growth results to more income per capita, which increases disposable income. We know that if ever there's more economic growth, there will be more income per capita within the country, and also there will be more disposable income. Remember, if there's more disposable income, there will be greater demand for goods and services. So when income increases, it creates temptations for consumers and producers to increase the demand for goods and services in the economy. Remember, consumers will be demanding consumer goods while producers will be demanding capital goods. And then, if aggregate demand is stimulated and aggregate supply fail to respond immediately, as there's more disposable income, people are always tempted to spend. They will be demanding more goods and services, and in case the supply fails to respond, it becomes fixed and inflexible. Then it won't respond to the demand. That will lead to the increase in price, and if those prices are increasing sustainably or significantly, that will be regarded as an inflation. And then we'll continue. Inflation prevails when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply, like I mentioned before. If AD increases faster than AS, that will be causing the demand pull inflation. This is when supply becomes inflexible or less responsive to the change in demand because of supply challenges or supply constraints. Remember, the supply will remain fixed in the short run because factors of production or inputs are fixed in the short run. They are not flexible, some of them. The solution is to create conditions that ensure that supply is more flexible. And then the unemployment. And then here, demand side policies are effective in stimulating economic growth. Remember, if ever there's more economic growth, there will be high demand for labor. And if there's more demand for labor, what happens? That will lead to what? It will lead to less unemployment and more employment. And if there is more employment in the economy, inflation starts to increase because people are having income that are demanding more goods and services. Economic growth increases the demand for labor, which then results to decrease in the unemployment. As unemployment falls, employment rises, which increase income and increase in the aggregate demand. So remember, if there's more demand with less supply, inflation will start to rise. So inflation starts to increase like, and remember, in this case, the relationship between unemployment and inflation is illustrated by the Phillips curve. As is being mentioned here, it is illustrated by the PC curve or Phillips curve, which explains inverse or negative relationship between inflation and the unemployment. Because if ever unemployment increases, inflation decreases due to the fact that there is less money and less demand for goods and services in the economy. But if ever unemployment decreases, inflation increases responding to more income available and the greater demand for goods and services. So this indicates the Phillips curve. So let's draw the Phillips curve together so that you can see what actually happens. So on our vertical axis, we have the inflation rate. And then on our horizontal axis, we have unemployment rate. Here it is. Meaning our unemployment will be shifting on this side of the horizontal and our inflation will be shifting on the vertical axis. So the increase will be moving up, the decrease will be going down. The increase will be moving to the right, the decrease will be moving to the left. Okay, here we are connecting what is coming here. There is our original PC. So that means our unemployment rate here is 14%. We call that a point A. And then what happens? So this is known to be a natural unemployment. Why natural unemployment? It's natural unemployment because as our inflation is at the highest point on that point of intersection point A, our unemployment, is at 14%, inflation rate equals to 0. So then that creates our natural unemployment. And then we are connecting now, meaning something is going to happen here. Our unemployment will decrease from 14 to 10%. Then we'll see what will happen. There is point B indicating the decrease in the unemployment. Look at this. If ever the unemployment decreases from 14% to 10%, what happens in the inflation? Inflation starts to increase from 0 to 2%. Why that is the situation? Remember, the decrease in unemployment indicates the increase in the employment opportunities. For that sake, there is more income available in the economy. Then people start to demand even more goods and services. To put pressure, then that leads to increase in prices. That's why the inflation slightly increased from 0% to 2%. Then we have point C in there. So our PC original, here it is. This is the Phillips curve original point. And then now we have the upward shift in there, but it will be indicated after this new Phillips curve. So we have the new PC there. Our new PC is shifting. It is caused by the changes or improvement of some supply side policies, which can be improving the human resource development, such as education and training, skills, and also having to make sure that people are having access to proper healthcare. Then they become even more productive. Then there's a backward shift in there. And then we have point D here. So there's a new point here that we call point D. This is mainly 9%. Our unemployment rate decreased to 9%. And then there is a new which is at the 9%. So let's look at the explanation of the graph. The graph comes back as it is now. The PC curve shows the initial situation. Point A is a point of intersection mostly in that case unemployment is very high. Shifting from right to the left, from 14 to 10%, inflation start to increase because what has happened? The employment rate has increased, resulting to more income and more demand for goods and services. That put the pressure on the inflation. If the economy is stimulated through expansionary fiscal or monetary policies so that unemployment rate falls to be, inflation increased to 2%. We can see inflation increasing to 2% because of unemployment rate decreasing and employment rate increasing, resulting to greater demand for goods and services because of more income. If unemployment rate fell to 8%, now this is the 8%, then inflation rate would be 6%. So there is an inverse or negative relationship between inflation and unemployment. It is negative. The government can choose how much unemployment they wish to trade off the inflation. Remember, it's negative because if ever unemployment is high and inflation is lower, but if ever unemployment is low, inflation is higher. Supply side measures can be used to move the PC to PC1, meaning flip curve is caused by some supply side measures to shift from left to the right, such as measures that include education and training, fewer legal restrictions, etc., that shift the supply side from left to the right. I mean, from the right to the left. So it's moved from right to the left, indicating that there have been improvement on those measures that allows even further production in the economy. On the new curve, the natural rate of unemployment is only 9%. Here it's 9%, but it's not indicated. A demand can be stimulated to higher levels. Therefore, the increase in the unemployment has an effect of inflation rate. And then now we move. Let's check now. We've spoken about the demand side policies. Let's do the supply side. Here we are talking about measures undertaken by the government to influence aggregate supply. Now, we will be getting to the point of the simultaneous use of both demand side and supply side policy so that we can see if there will be any inflation effect or not in this situation. So these are measures undertaken by the government to influence aggregate supply. The main aim is to increase the supply so that there will be no supply constraints within the economy to avoid this effect of an inflation if ever you come across high level of economic growth. Supply side measures must be in place. Supply side policies are economic policies used to trigger the aggregate supply in the economy. Improved supply side policies increase productivity and stimulate the aggregate supply. If ever there has been improved supply side, that will lead to more productivity and more supply for goods and services. Remember, if we talk about the supply side measures, we refer to reducing the cost of doing the business, improving efficiency of inputs, and also improving efficiency of markets. If I can give you a short brief, it is very important for the state to intervene to support business so that the cost of doing the business can be reduced. Remember that in South Africa, the cost of doing the business are very, very high due to the fact that we have high cost of infrastructure, we have high administrative cost, and that is bad. So the state must intervene in support of businesses so that there can be reduced cost of doing the business. How can the state intervene? Before I answer the question, if ever the cost of doing the business are very high in a country, that become a disincentive to businesses because it hampers them from producing and supply more goods and services. That's why we always come across aggregate demand being more than aggregate supply, or aggregate supply being inflexible because the government does not intervene in support of businesses to improve. So in there we talk about introducing production subsidies or incentives, which can be direct or indirect. If it's directly, it can be a cash grant given by the government to businesses to support them to reduce the cost of production and produce more goods and services. If ever business has been funded by the government through subsidies or production subsidies to produce more goods and services, the average supply will be increasing. So it will be responding to the change in demand. Also, we talk about the cost of the infrastructure. We know that in South Africa, the government is fully responsible for the cost of the infrastructure. So if the state can intervene by lowering the cost of transport, the cost of energy, and the cost of communication, that will be a greater incentive to businesses. They will be able to take those revenues that were reduced and reinvest so that they can produce more goods and services in the economy. And then also, we talk about administrative cost. The cost of administrative is relatively high in South Africa. So it is the responsibility of the government to support business to reduce those administrative costs, such as the submission of IT or tax returns. It is relatively high. Cost of inspections are relatively high. So if that can be reduced, it can be the greater incentive to businesses to even take that extra revenue and reinvest so that they can produce more goods and services. And then we talk about improving efficiency of inputs. In that case, we refer to the following. It is very important for business to keep in line with the changes in technology within the economy. So they must always be adaptive or adapt to the latest technological trends. For instance, the commercial vehicles must be regularly replaced in a country so that they will always be productive. So normally commercial vehicles are replaced in the period of 5 years, or they are disposed in the period of 5 years so that they remain intact with the modern technological changes. Also, the computer equipment is regularly changed. After 3 years, it should be disposed so that they will be keeping in the latest technical trend. So if ever businesses are not adapting to the new technology, that will always lower their productivity, which will lead to the supply. And then if the state can intervene by lowering all of those taxes, that can be a greater incentive to businesses, and that can allow productivity to increase, and the supply of goods and services will also be increasing. So that was about taxation or taxes in the economy. So, like I mentioned, high taxes are a disincentive. They don't benefit the economy if ever they are very, very high. And then we continue. We talk about capital consumption. So in this case, we refer to the replacement or replacing capital goods more regular to create an opportunity for businesses to keep up with the latest changes in the technology. So it is very important for business to always be in line with the new technical trends, because if they are not in line, the level of productivity will not be responsive. It will be declining because technology maybe requires a business to adapt more quickly. So depreciation allowances are subtracted from gross profit before taxes are calculated, and decreases tax liability. In South Africa, companies are allowed to write off computer equipment every 3 years, and some machines can be written off every 5 years, so that those machines will always be in line with the new changes in the technology, so that there will always be high level of productivity. Commercial vehicles are disposed of after 5 years. So if they are not disposed, that will be leading to businesses facing the lower level of productivity, and the supply will be decreasing. As the capital loses its lifespan, its productivity declines, which lowers aggregate supply. So we know that the capital is a wear and tear. If ever we produce more, it loses its lifespan and result to less productivity, which will be lowering the supply. That's why it must be replaced more regularly, so that it will always be producing more goods and services. Then we talk about the human resource development. So the quality of workforce can be improved by improved healthcare, education and training schemes, and as well as mobility of labor. This is very important. If people or labor force is well trained and skilled, having access to proper healthcare and also be flexible, that will lead to greater supply for goods and services. And then healthy labor force is productive. So it is necessary for labor force to have access to proper and quality healthcare. Well-skilled workers are productive and efficient. We know that if people are well-skilled, they become even more efficient. They produce more goods and services at a short period of time, and also at the lower cost. So it is very important that our workers become skilled in business so that they can produce more goods and services. Remember, that can lead to the increase in the aggregate supply. And then we talk about the free advisory schemes. So free advisory schemes are given by the government to local business that relocate to areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. Local exporting businesses are also beneficiaries of free advisory schemes, those being that are producing mainly to export goods to the global market or foreign markets. Free advisory schemes promote opportunity to export and establish business activities in the foreign countries, research and development, and statistical information. Others provide special help of SMMEs, small, micro, and medium enterprises, to establish, manage, and perform. So in South Africa, the government is involved in all of these above services and activities to promote free advisory schemes that increases the productivity and also aggregate supply in the economy. And then increasing the efficiency of markets. Now, we talk about regulation, competition, as well as leveling playing field. So let's check in here. So deregulation. Deregulation is the removal of unnecessary laws and regulation that prohibit functionality of market. If ever the government put more regulation, businesses will always disinvest or withdraw their investment because they don't like the economy where there is too much government interference. So if the government can relax some regulations, business can find it easy to function on their own, and then there will be high level of productivity. So address labor and other resource market inflexibilities. Remove price, import, and exchange control that can result to more investors in the economy. Compared to developed countries, the South African government is very much involved in market. There's much interference through regulation, which result to less investment of foreign direct investors in the country. Too much government intervention prohibit the entry of foreign direct investment. If ever the government intervenes too much in the economy, that will lead to high level of, to the lower level of investment. So it will lead to high level of disinvestments, especially the FDIs will withdraw. They won't be flowing in large numbers because there is too much government interference in the economy. So deregulating some laws can encourage and attract more investments into the economy and increase aggregate supply. So the plea here is the government must reduce some unnecessary laws and regulations, which will be attracting more business than investors, especially the foreign direct investors, to flow into the country and invest, so that there will be greater demand, the greater productivity and the greater supply for goods and services. And then the competition. Remember here, it is very important for the country to promote the competition. The Commission encourage establishment of new businesses in the economy. If ever the Commission is open and free, there will be high level of establishment of new businesses, and there will be high level of productivity if ever there are more businesses that are allowed to enter the market. That attract the foreign direct investment into the economy, because competition is too open. There are no much restrictions. There are no monopolies that are owning special rights to be the only producers of a certain product. Remove power imbalances by monopolies and opportunities for collusion by oligopolies among market participants. We know that monopolies are always having that special rights to own a particular resource. Also, oligopolies have this thing of colluding so that they can kill the competition. If those things can be removed, there can be a market that allows establishment of new businesses without any much restrictions in the economy. The Employment Equity Act promotes healthy competition which improves businesses in the market and prevent restrictive practices. So in South Africa, the South African Commission Policy Act, using the Commission Tribunal as well as the Commission Appeals Court, ensure that market becomes and remain competitive without some restrictions and barriers to entry, without any anti-competitive practices that can prevent the entry of new businesses. So this allows the establishment of new businesses. This also attracts the inflow of foreign direct investment. Remember, if they flow in large numbers, that will lead to a high level of productivity and high supply for goods and services. Leveling playing field. So private companies cannot compete with the public companies, remember, or public enterprises. Remember, public enterprises have a legislative protection and are supported by the government through tax system, which makes competition between them and the private sector to be completely unfair. You can't say the private sector business must compete with the SOEs. Remember, state-owned enterprises are supported by the government through tax revenues that are coming from taxpayers. So they are funded, they are supported through legislation, and then they can't compete with the private sector business, because really that will be an unfair competition. Privatization should be encouraged to improve the efficiency of markets, and then corruption must also be eliminated, including nepotism, to ensure that the market is effective and efficient. Long run aggregate supply and aggregate demand. So in this case now, I'm drawing the graph to indicate to you, if ever we implement both the supply side policies and demand side policies, what will happen in the economy? Let's see now. Our demand is increasing from 80 to 81. And then we have the shift of the demand curve from the left to the right. And then there will be a new point there, the point F. Our aggregate supply now becomes flexible and responsive in the long run. Remember, I said to you, in the short run, the aggregate supply is not flexible enough because some inputs are fixed. But in the long run, they become flexible. That's why you see aggregate supply shifting from AS to AS1. It is responding to the change in the aggregate demand. How? Let's check, it is increasing. Then initially we came across the increase in quantity demanded, since 80 increased from 80 to 81. So the demand increased from Q to Q1, and then the supply responded immediately from increasing from AS to AS1, which is now reducing the effect of inflation. The price remains constant. However, the quantity supplied increases from Q to Q1. That is indicated by that arrow. So in the long run, the supply remains flexible. So the supply side will be very much responsive to the change in demand. That's why you come across AS responding to the change in AD, resulting to the change in equilibrium from E to F there. But then the price remain constant. There is no inflation effect because the government have use this situation of simultaneously implementing both demand side policies and supply side policies. There is economic growth, however, it does not bring or produce inflation effect because the supply side policies are very much responsive to the change in the demand side policies. So this is the graph that it's being explained on the side. Aggregate demand, AD, and aggregate supply, AS, are in the equilibrium at point E. There you see there. And then our price is P, and then we have Q in there. If aggregate demand is stimulated so that it moved to AD1 and aggregate supply responds promptly and locate to AS1, we can see that the AD increased to AD1 and the AS simultaneous increase to AS1. That simply means now the supply was responsive in the long run. It was very much flexible to respond to the change in demand, which give us no inflation effect. Both AD and AS1 meet at point F, which shows the increase in the quantity demanded and the increase in the supply also from Q to Q1. The solution is to create conditions that ensure that supply is more flexible so it responds quickly to the change in aggregate demand. If the cost of increasing production is completely flexible, a great real output can be supplied at any given price level. So that was your new economic paradigm. Where we dealt with both the demand side and supply side policies. I believe you may need to see that if ever we only implement demand side policies without influencing supply side, that will be resulting to inflexibilities of the supply. The supply won't be responsive to the change in demand and it will cause inflation effect. But on the new graph that I've just explained, if ever simultaneous demand side and supply side policies are implemented, the supply is quick to respond to the change in demand, and that will be leading to what? It will lead to no inflation and greater supply of goods and services. If consumers are demanding about 20 units, suppliers will supply 20 units because supply has been flexible in the long run due to the fact that inputs are flexible in the long run. So these are the features underpinning forecasting. This is what we use to forecast the economy. This is what we use to see what will happen in future. This is what we use to see what has happened in the past. So this is what we use to see what is currently happening in the economy. We call these features underpinning forecasting. They are used by economists, policymakers, businesses, as well as government authorities to see what has happened, what is still to happen, what is currently happening in the economy. They use them to analyze economic performance at the time and also analyze what has happened using previous data to discover the new upcoming situations or information in the economy. So they are very interesting. They are also a part of your essay also. So today I'm actually dealing with two essays that are on your hand. So in explanation, we say features underpinning forecasting are used in forecasting to give a preview of possible future economic changes. So they are used to predict the future economic performance or to confirm what has already happened in the economy or to concur with the current economic performance. Those are the features underpinning forecasting. They function to give highlights or glimpse on what economists and authorities can expect in the future. Remember, economists and policy makers or authorities, they use some information that is existing so that they can estimate what is likely to happen in future in the economy. Past data is used to forecast the economy as relevant assumptions are made. So whenever they have that past data, they can be able to forecast or estimate what can happen in the economy. Anticipations are used. Remember, economics deal with assumptions at the most. The following are the features used to forecast the economy. Remember, to forecast is to see or look beyond what is likely to happen in the economy. So here they come. We have leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincidence indicators, and then the composite indicators, meaning indicators are LLCC, leading, lagging, coincidence, as well as the composite indicators. And then we have the extrapolation, which is known to be the use of known facts or information to discover the unknown information. We have the trend line, which is the line that indicates the direction of economic activities. We have the length, which indicates the duration or the period taken by the cycle to be the full cycle, which is measured from peak to peak and trough to trough. And then also we talk about the amplitude, which measures the distance from peak trend line to trough and then trough trend line to peak. We also have moving averages, which is the tool used to analyze the economic performance using the existing or the known information. So here are the leading indicators. If we talk about the leading indicators, we talk about indicators that prevail before economic changes, meaning they always prevail in prior. They come before the economy changes. They change before the economy changes. So these are used by economists, policymakers, as well as the government authorities, including businesses, to forecast what is likely to happen in the economy, meaning they are leading. They prevail first. They prevail in prior before the economy can appear. So leading indicators give economists, policymakers, government authorities, as well as businesses a glimpse of what is likely to happen in the economy. So they change before the economy changes. We call them the leading indicators. Remember, if we say they lead, meaning they always come first. Thereafter, the economy will be changing after that. We regard them as leading indicators. So talking about the leading indicators, let's see what is really being mentioned. So leading indicators give consumers, businesses, and the state a glimpse. So glimpse can be the highlight of the direction in which the economy might be heading, what might happen in the economy in the near future. So they lead the event, they come in prior, then they can be used in forecasting. Remember, I said to forecast is to look beyond what can happen in the near future. When these indicators rises, the level of economic activities will also rise a few months later, meaning whenever leading indicators are showing the increase, at the later stage, few months later, the economy will also be rising, because now the assumption has been used to say there will be a rise in the economy. They are used in extrapolation as a tool to predict possible economic status or future possible economic status. Examples of leading indicators are job advertisements. Remember, if ever jobs are advertised now, more jobs are being advertised. That gives us a glimpse of the fact that there will be more employment, more production, more income, and more economic growth in the near future, because people will be employed. Number of new companies registered. If ever there are more companies that have been registered now, that means in the near future there will be high level of employment, high level of productivity, as well as economic growth, and then money supply. If ever money supply increases now, that means there will be a greater demand for goods and services, which will be encouraging businesses to produce even more goods and services. So look at this graph that will be drawn here. So we have the economy as red, and then we have leading indicators here on our color. So let's see what happens. Leading indicators, here they come. They come in dots. So these are the leading indicators. They come in proud. They appear before the economy changes. Jobs are being advertised now. So what will happen in the near future? Then in the near future, economy will then be increasing. If they increase now, economy will be increasing in the near future. So remember, the red one indicates the economy, and these the blue one indicates what we call indicates the indicator. So indicator came in prior, then the economy came after. So it increased first, then the economy increased after. So it was giving us the highlight or the claims of what was likely to happen in the economy. Then the lagging indicators. Remember, these are indicators that changes after the economy has changed. In this case, the economy will come first, and then the indicator will prevail after. So these indicators change after the economy change. Lagging indicators won't change direction until after the business cycle has changed its direction. They change few months later after the economy has changed. Lagging indicators confirm what has happened in the economy. So they mainly confirm what has already happened in the economy. Unlike the leading simply give us what is likely to happen in the future, but lagging confirm what has already happened in the economy. Examples of these indicators or lagging indicators include a number of hours worked in the construction and total of commercial vehicles sold. And then here we indicate or we draw the graph indicating those indicators. Remember, red stands for economy and the blue indicate what we call lagging indicators. Let's see. So remember, they are lagging indicators. The economy comes first in red. The economy there has increased. After that, the indicators will then be coming afterwards. So they come after the economy has also came. They increase after the economy has already increased to confirm that really the economy has increased. That's why we call them lagging indicators. Then let's talk about the coincidence indicators. These are the indicators that changes at the same time as the economy change. So they confirm what is currently happening in the economy. So coincidence indicators are indicators that change at the same time as the economy changes. They change because of changes in the economy. So they change simultaneously. They indicate the actual state of the economy, what is currently happening in the economy. If the economy reaches peak, they also reach peak at the same time. If it reaches trough, they also reach trough at the same time. Examples of coincidence indicators are value of retail sales and real GDP. And then let's look here. We have the economy at red, and also we have our indicators. So in this case, they simply come at the same time. So these are our coincidence indicators. Then let's talk about the composite indicators. So in this case, we talk about the group of all leading indicators, lagging and coincident indicators grouped together to form the single value. There will be a composite leading indicator, composite lagging indicator, and also composite coincidence indicator if we are creating composite indicators. So the three composite indicators are often used to calculate a single composite indicator. Then a single composite indicator is a single number of, to benchmark the country's economic performance. So all of these indicators are grouped together as a composite indicator so that we can calculate a single composite indicator, then that will be used to benchmark the economic performance. Then we talk about extrapolation. If we extrapolate, is measured as the number of years it takes for the economy to move from one peak to another peak. So that will be informing us of different types of the business cycle that we spoke about, the likes of juggler, contractive, goods, and kitchen. A full cycle therefore includes peak, a construction phase, and expansion phase, which means we have a peak and trough as turning points, then we have resurgence, depression, recovery, and prosperity. That will give us a full or complete cycle. So there are two turning points and two phases if we are talking about what we call the full cycle. Longer cycles show the strength. If ever cycles are very long, they show the strength, meaning it takes a long period of time for the economy to reach the full business cycle. Cycles may overshoot. This means that activity in terms of same components indicators increase beyond the normal level. That's when the cycles are overshooting. So here is the business cycle. Then we indicate the what we call the length here. We said from peak to peak. Remember, there's also prosperity here that is indicating the length, and also from trough to another trough. Also, we indicate the length of the business cycle. Don't be confused if you are told in your exam to indicate the length or peak or amplitude or whatever. It is very important for you to keep this for you so that you will always be able to respond to questions. So peak to peak or peak to prosperity is a length. A trough to another trough is also another length. And then moving averages. So in this case, we talk about the statistical tool that is used to analyze changes that occur over a period of time in the economy. So that's a tool. Moving averages can be a tool that can be used to analyze the changes in the economic performance over a period of time. And then it is a method of repeatedly calculating a series of different average values along time series to produce the smooth curves. So it is used to iron out minor fluctuations of the business cycle. Though that is moving average. Moving average are used to minimize effects of short-term fluctuations like seasonal fluctuations in our business cycle. So to calculate the moving averages, economic indexes are added based on time series and divided by the number of years. You will see we will be doing those calculations to calculate moving averages. And then by calculating the moving average, economies or businesses will be able to analyze economic trends over a period of time. Remember, if we calculate moving averages, we're able to discover actual numbers of the growth and decline of economic activities that will be used to plot the actual business cycle or the real business cycles. So this data series is added when evaluating trends of economic performance over a short or long term. We can use the period of 3 months, we can use the period of 6 months, we can use a year, we can use 3 years, etc. It depends with the instruction on which moving averages should be calculated. There is no rigid way of answering the question or of asking the question. You ensure that you understand the question. If the question requires you to calculate moving averages for maybe 6 months, you claim 6 months together, all those variables divided by 6. If ever it requires you to calculate for maybe 3 years, that means that you will be using 3 years and then add those 3 years variable divided by 3, 3 years variable divided by 3 until you get all of your moving averages. Moving averages can be calculated for 3 months up to 5 years when smoothing minor fluctuations of the business cycle. Months or years data series is added and divided by their total number to discover moving averages. It will be shown practically. The following is the example of how moving averages can be calculated. So here we are given the year, which is 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So these are the years given to us. And then we have GDP, which is the index of economic activities in billions. In billions, we have 5, 2017, 8, 2018, 9, 2019, 11, 2020, 4, 2021, 6, 2022, and 10, 2023. If you can check this, initially we have 5, then there's an upswing to 8, meaning they're increasing. Then increases also to 9. Increases to 11. From this 11, we have a turning point because it goes down to 4 if we had to draw the actual business cycle. Then also at 4 gave us a turning point because it goes up to 6, and then 6 goes further to 10. Let's see the calculation of the moving averages now. So here we go. We'll start by what we call the 2019. Remember what is going to happen. Let me see what we have here. Here we go. So if we calculate for 3 years, that means the 2017 will be a dash because we need 3 years. 2018 will be dash. And then we start by 2019. What do we do? We say 5 plus 8 plus 9 and then divided by 3. Then we'll be getting 7.3. This is our 7.3. We go to the next 3 years. What do we do then? We will be leaving our 2019 because we've already used the component. So what do we do now? On the second one for 2020, we say the 8 plus 9 plus 11, here it is, divided by 3 years, equal to 9.3. There you go, we have 9.3. Then we have to leave our 2019 now. We go straight to the 2020. So, we leave 2020, we go to 2021. So what do we do now? We will be saying 9 plus 11 plus 4. 9 plus 11 plus 4. After doing that, we divide by 3, and then we get 8. This is our 2021, it's 8. If you can check, these moving averages are increasing. There's an upward movement. 7.3, 9.3, 8. And then from 8, we are having a turning point down to 7 because we go straight now to 2022. We say 11. We keep on dropping numbers, remember. 11 plus 4 plus 6. So that is 11 plus 4 plus 6 divided by 3 years. We get 7. Then there's a turning point here because we had 8. Now we're sloping down to 7. From then we complete our moving averages. We calculate year number 2023. What do we do? We will be saying this 4 plus 6 plus 10 divided by 3 years because these are 3 years. We get 6.6. Then we are done by calculating our moving averages. Then sometimes we can be instructed to do what? To draw the graph. So this is the assessment on what we call on the business. On the business side, one of the topics I've covered here. Remember, our essay, it's a section C, it's an essay. Remember, we must always have introduction for 2 marks, where you will be defining the concept without giving any example, without repeating something that will be written on the body. And then also, it's a structure of an essay. Let's see also what comes. We have the structure on the body where you discuss the depth, we provide the depth discussion of the content for 26 marks. Remember, we have 8:18 principle, whereby your 18 is the content delivery and your 8 is what we call is the lower order, where you will be listing and providing examples. And then we have additional part for 10 marks where you need to provide answers in full sentences, the minimum of 5 full sentences, and then you don't list in there, you don't also give examples, like you must provide full detailed information if you answer to this one. And then we have also the conclusion where you must answer in higher order as you respond. You must be very critical without repeating any information that has been mentioned on the board of your essay. Then the total of your essay will be 40 marks. And then let's see. This is a repeat. Discussing detailed demand and supply side policies used to smooth the business side. So I'll be very quick on this because it's a repeat of the content I've explained to you also. There's also a worksheet and the memorandum or marking guideline of the same thing. Why is the price debit important to prevent extreme fluctuations in the business cycle? 10 marks, then that give us the 40 marks. It contributes about 26% out of 150. Introduction. We define the economic paradigm or the business cycle. So we say economic paradigm is a government strategy which aims at increasing economic growth without supply constraints. It is embedded on both demand side and supply side policies. So any other introduction that is correct will be given marks in there. Then let's go further. On our demand side, fiscal and monetary policy are demand side policies. So let's see. It focuses on aggregate demand in the economy, that is 2 marks. When household, firms, and governments spend more, demand in the economy increases. And then this makes the economy to grow, but can lead to inflation because only demand side has been affected. An increase in aggregate demand can be achieved through expansionary fiscal policy by increasing government spending and decreased taxation, that is 2 marks. This increased level of income and the demand for goods and services. Expansionary monetary policy is also useful when repurchase rate, cash reserves are reduced to increase money supply. Central bank can also buy bonds from the open market and relax moral persuasion. And then we continue. Inflation. Aggregate demand increases more quickly than aggregate supply, and this can cause increase in prices. And then if the supply does not react quickly to the change in the demand, the price will increase. And then this will lead to inflation, sustained increase in general price level over a period of time. And then we continue the demand side, unemployment. Then demand side policies are effective when stimulating economic growth. So we know that high economic growth will lead to great demand for labor. And then as a result, more people will be employed and unemployment will be decreasing. As unemployment decreases, inflation is likely to increase. And then the relationship between unemployment and inflation is explained through what we call the Phillips curve. Supply side policies reducing the cost of doing the business. And then infrastructural services or cost, reasonable charge or efficient of transport, communication, and water services and energy. And then the cost of infrastructure is relatively high in South Africa, and it is disincentive to business. That's why they can supply less goods and services. And then cost of administration. These costs include inspection reports and application of various laws, regulations, bylaws, tax returns, and returns providing statistical information. Lowering administrative costs can result to more capital formation by business and increased productivity, which will be increasing the supply. Cash incentives. It includes subsidies for businesses to locate in neglected areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. Also that are locating to the foreign markets where they will be exporting their goods and services. And then improving efficiency of inputs. In there we talk about taxes. So a high tax, personal income tax is a disincentive to work. It decreases the disposable income, then people will demand less goods and services. High value added tax is disincentive to produce. It increases the level of prices. And then also lower taxes can be a great incentive in the economy because it encourages businesses and households to demand more goods and services in the economy. And then we continue. Capital consumption. Replacing capital irregularly creates opportunity for business to keep up with the technical development and better output. And then in South Africa, computer equipment is replaced after 3 years, and or while the commercial vehicles are disposed in the period of 5 years. And then human resource development. So here we say improving quality of manpower through healthcare, education, and training, strengthen the labor force, and result to further productivity and efficiency. And then we continue with the supply side. Free advisory schemes, remember these ones, promote opportunities to export and result to greater output and aggregate supply. And then also these benefits are also given to businesses that are locating to underprivileged areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. And then we continue. with the supply side, improving efficiency of market. So these are the deregulation, which is known to be removal of laws and regulations by the government to ensure a pure functionality of markets without too much government intervention. And then it attracts more market competition and increase accurate supply in the economy. Southern markets are characterized by too much government involvement or interference, which discourages the foreign direct investors or investments. And then the supply side policies continue. Competition. So high competition encourages establishment of new business in the economy. And then also in South Africa, healthy competition is promoted through the Commission Policy Act of South Africa by using 3 commission bodies, namely Commission, the Tribunal, as well as the Commission Appeals Court. This prevents power abuse by monopolies as well as oligopolies. And then we continue also leveling playing field. In this case, we talk about private sector business, which should not be competing with the public enterprises because they will lead to unfair competition and unequal competition, because the public sector or SOEs are financed by the government through taxpayers' money, while the private sector is not financed. Public enterprises are funded by the government through the national budget, so that will be creating unfair competition. Also, public businesses or SOEs are not profit motive, so they do everything on behalf of the government to ensure social welfare. Privatization must be encouraged to increase market competition and minimize the state involvement in the market. And then remember, you get maximum of 8 marks for headings and mere listing in the above information, waiting from making guidelines. A maximum of 8 marks will be allocated for mere listing or heading or examples. Then additional part, why is price stability important to prevent extreme fluctuations in the business cycle? Let's see, price stability is important because of what? Because of the following. It contributes high levels of economic activity and employment. If ever the price stability, meaning price do not increase and decrease over time, that will result to more employment opportunities and more economic growth. It will be attracting more investors because there will be more certainties about the economy of the country. It improves the transparency of the price mechanism so that people can recognize. It allows people to make well-informed consumption decisions because prices are not always changing. It encourages foreign investment to promote the growth. It helps to allocate resources more efficiently. We continue with the additional part. It avoids unproductive activities that are sometimes used to protect one against the impact of the high inflation. It avoids the risk of deflation, which makes it more difficult to implement a policy guarding against it. And then implements inflation targeting by reducing the distortion of inflation or deflation, which exacerbate the distortionary impact on the economic behavior of tax and social security. And then we continue. Keeps interest rate unchanged to ensure continued growth in the economy without big fluctuations. Adapt the cash reserve requirement which will compel banks to limit credit or money in circulation or money supply, prevents an arbitrary redistribution of wealth and income as a result of unexpected fluctuations. Maximum of 2 marks for mere listing. It is very important that in the additional part you provide the full explanation. You don't just list, because if you list, you will be getting maximum of 2 and the rest won't be giving marks. Maximum will be 2 for everything. Then this gives you 10 marks. And then this is the conclusion. Remember, it must be the higher order. Economic stability is achieved when mismatches between demand and supply are cleared. This simultaneous increase in aggregate demand and aggregate supply result to greater market output without inflation effect in the economy. The above must be a higher order conclusion. See page 6 of the exam guideline of 2021. And then after all, I, Mr. Mhlongo, thank you, and I believe that this lesson will have great impact as we prepare for your upcoming formal task. Goodbye.